Why do we humans, you and I, prefer not to change our minds? Do you ever wonder why? First of all, we know from neuroscience that our brains, your brain, uses a lot of energy. And so, anytime that you use your senses, touch, hear something, different entry points, but it's processed by the brain. It has to figure out what it's hearing, what it's sensing, what it's touching. And so it needs to go by history, by prediction. So here, if I'm touching this, the brain does not have to process what is this thing, because from history, from memory, it knows it's a marker. And so one of the reason why is that we are using our brain, our nervous system, our body, and our brain to predict. And so when we are predicting, especially for the brain, we usually want to remember things that may have caused you harm, threatening. So if you were walking, let's say, in an alley, and then maybe many, many times you walked that alley and you were safe and sound, but then one time your bag was snatched. Rest assured that your brain would tag that experience because it's for your survival to actually remember not to walk in that aisle again, but it only takes one. So that is what we call pattern matching. So the brain remembers that. It especially remembers, this is from evolutionary psychology. So if you were many, many thousands of years ago, if you know that in that bush, usually there's a tiger lurking there, you would remember the location, the look of that bush. It is for our evolutionary survival to actually have that type of brain. So, why we prefer not to change our minds is actually for for not to not consume too much brain power, not to overthink like, oh, is it this bush, that bush? We remember things for our safety. So that's the first one, which leads to the second one is that it's safer. It's safer to just know to pattern match that it's that bush. And usually, when you have a negativity bias, which simply means you remember the negative things, the threatening things, is that it becomes all or nothing. If you've had that experience, it might be all bushes or at least a particular type of this bush. And so it saves your brain trying to figure out every little bush. So, why we humans tend to not change our minds is because it's safer. It's safer to do that. Another one is that it's more I'm looking at my notes. It's more familiar. You probably heard that, even though you might be in a dysfunctional relationship. And then when you trace back, yeah, the generational relational uh, dynamics in your family, you're thinking, oh wow, I see the pattern. And these things are subconscious, meaning it's not that you're intentionally wanting to be in a dysfunctional relationship. In fact, thinking about you want to find the love of your life, for instance, but these things are very subconscious. It's been passed on. These are the types of role models you had, the experience that you were exposed with. So whether or not they're dysfunctional, they feel familiar. At least you know where you're at, type of thing. And so these are just a few things why we humans prefer not to change our minds. By the way, this is Roanne, Digia Samuels, licensed psychotherapist. Thank you for listening to my videos. These videos are, you probably already noticed, are pretty much not edited. So I just pop in, have a general topic in my head, and I just start talking. It's also good practice for me to simply show up. I share these videos as my belief of hoping to elevate the vibration of your relationships, our relationships with our loved ones, and how we show up in the world. So that's the reason why I am showing up. So going back, maybe you're wondering, okay, so how do we change our minds though? And one way to do that, I'm sure there are many other ways, is to act as if you are a researcher. And that because meanings mean everything. I have a video around that, and I will drop that in the show notes. That your interpretation is based on your memories, on experiences you've had, usually from the past or not too long ago. And that when you act as a researcher, you are being very present with the information at hand. And information, you take that more as a feedback rather than taking things as personal. So nothing is really about you would be the stance of a researcher. So if you have new information, if you're a researcher, you usually have a hypothesis. You think this is what might happen. Then you have the actual event. That's the experiment. And then from the experiment, you're thinking, well, did it meet my expectation? That would be your conclusion. So the way to change your mind is to take things as is, to be present, to rely on information as simply feedback rather than something that's being done unto you or on you. Um, so I hope by sharing this video, it's been helpful to you. If you like to receive weekly, I call them weekly love notes from me, I'll drop the link in the show notes and I just write a little blurb every week. And I hope you've been well. Again, thanks for listening. Bye now.